Obviously, it's been quite a year here in Topsfield, but also throughout the region, the state, the country, the world. But through the challenges, we've continued to try to make sure important initiatives stayed a focal point of what we tried to do while we battled the virus. And one of those that has been very important to the community and a focal point of downtown revitalization. And so tonight, I'd like to go over with everybody an opportunity that we have in the downtown that can help our revitalization effort. Specifically, that being the former highway fire station garage located on School Ave. Select Board Chair Lynn Bermudez and I will provide a look at efforts underway regarding the building, but most importantly, a chance for everybody in the community that's interested to join us, to listen in, and then to answer questions and field comments conclusion of a presentation. Just want to really emphasize talking about this property and the future of it and what it can mean and be for the community. It has to be a community-wide conversation and an initiative. So your input matters greatly. And unfortunately, under these conditions, we can't meet in person. Typically, we would have person meeting, but we'll do our best tonight via Zoom to try to coordinate. Hopefully, an interesting, formative material that around the downtown effort, like I mentioned. So I guess there's three core goals for tonight. First is an update on downtown revitalization. Second is to talk specifically about the highway garage, and then obviously, like I just mentioned, input from all of you that might be interested in sharing their thoughts. But before we get started, I just want to acknowledge some people that are with us. Chair of the Select Board, Lynn Bermudez, co-sponsoring this event tonight, is with us. Select Board member Marshall Hook and Select Board member Dick Gann as well. Also have Martha Morrison from our planning board, the chair. Also, there's members from the Zoning Board of Appeals, Historic Commission, as well as the other members of the planning board that are on the call. And then also from our team, we have Heidi Gaffney from our Conservation Commission, Wendy Hansberry, our health director, who's on another call at the moment, but will be jumping on shortly. Our fire chief, Jen Collins Brown, police chief Neil Hovey, and all of you, everybody else. And if I missed anybody, I'm sorry. There's a lot of people that are joining us tonight, which is great. But just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started as well. Obviously due to the pandemic, this is a virtual Zoom meeting. Due to the size of the meeting, we do have some guidelines that we just want to go over. Obviously, everybody will be muted for the meeting. If you have questions or comments during the meeting, the slide deck that we have that will present, my email is at the bottom. If you have a question or, in essence, a way to raise your hand for at the end of the presentation, if you want to share a comment or a thought or question, just email me, and that's khartoonian@topsfield-ma.gov, and that's on each slide at the bottom. I'll get those on my inbox, and when we get to the end, we'll call on you, and Debbie, helping us organize, she'll unmute you so you can share your thoughts. And then if you don't feel comfortable in a large group, and I get that, asking a question or providing a comment, you can email me your comment or question as well. And if we have time, I'll read it, or we'll get back to you separately after the meeting. We're targeting the meeting to end at 7:30. So again, if we don't have time to get to everyone's questions, we will certainly, anybody who emails me will get a response. That's a commitment and a promise. Again, just want to thank everybody for tuning in. It's really an exciting time in Topsfield. There's so much going on and work being done in the background to propel us forward, to make the downtown really special destination, hopefully. So, really just looking forward to exploring this with you all and getting your feedback and your thoughts. So at this point, Lynn, if you wanted to bring up the presentation, I'll let you get started.
I will. See if I can do this right. Put it onto there. Okay. All right, I'll get started then. Good evening. As Kevin said, I'm Lynn Bermudez, and I'm the chair of the Select Board. And it's great to see so many people here. With my screen sharing, I can't see what we're up to. Oh, wait, I just did 81. So that's great. This just reconfirms the enthusiasm and the interest that we saw and heard about a year and a half ago when we held a discussion at the public hall to get your input on downtown revitalization and the strategic plan that was being developed. We had almost 200 people turn out, and then another 150 that attended the online public hall the following week. So hopefully these numbers will continue to go up, and we'll get close to those. So the strategic plan was finalized and presented to the Select Board back in February of 2020. And although COVID hit us just a month later in March, we kept moving forward on implementing a number of initiatives that were in that plan. So we'd like to start off tonight by just giving you an update on those activities that have occurred since the plan was developed. So I'm going to cover 5 items. First, the overall revitalization goals. Just give you a quick reminder of the 2019 MAPC study, that the effort that we did to develop this strategic plan, the work that has been completed in 2020, the current priorities that we're working on for 2021, and then priorities that we have planned for 2022 or perhaps sooner if that's possible. So each year, the Select Board identifies what it considers to be their priorities for the town. Doing this allows all the organizations that report up into the board to obtain and then align resources so that we're all working towards the same goals. So in talking with you, the residents and businesses, you let us know that you thought increasing opportunities and the vibrancy of the downtown was very important. You wanted a first-rate downtown while still maintaining its rural character and charm. So we made revitalization one of the board's goals for the last 2 years and got to work on it. Just backing up for a minute, in 2019, we had applied for and received 2 grants to conduct a parking study and then a strategic plan for the downtown. We pulled together business owners, residents, developers, and working with the MAPC, which is the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, with input from residents and businesses, we developed the plan. We created a vision for the downtown and then identified very specific steps that would get us from where we were to where we wanted to go. We also built upon the great work that had been done by many other people prior to developing the most recent plan. And then we shared that final plan with the town in 2020 to solicit feedback. So what you see here is the vision and the goals that were in that plan. So the vision was a welcoming downtown village where Topsfield residents and visitors of all ages can live, work, gather, and shop. And you see the 5 goals here: attract new businesses, increase the customer base to support those businesses, enhance the look, feel, and safety of the district, increase community building events, and then expand our town capabilities and resources to actually achieve those goals. So all of the initiatives that we worked on in 2020 addressed one or more of these 5 goals. So what you see on this slide is all the different items that were accomplished at the end of 2019 and into 2020. The first thing that I'd like to point out is that you can see these initiatives cost roughly $650,000, but it only cost Topsfield residents $3,100 because we obtained $645,000 from grants and private donations. We knew funds were tight, so we had to get creative in finding funding for these initiatives. We had applied for and received 5 significant grants from the state and from National Grid. We also received 2 generous donations from a new nonprofit that was formed from one of the recommendations coming out of the strategic plan, and that was the Topsfield Community Partnership, also known as TCP. They are a 5-member board whose mission is to support initiatives to improve the downtown and other areas in Topsfield. I believe their chair, Sarah Guido, is here on the call tonight, so we would like to thank her and the board for their generous support. There's another organization that was formed to support the initiatives in the downtown, and that is the Economic Community Development Committee, also known as the ECDC. I'd like to thank all the ECDC members for their time and effort because they have been instrumental in a number of the initiatives that you see here on the screen. One of the items listed on this screen is the design and purchase of 20 solar lights. The prototype, which was the first of its kind in the country, was designed by our own town administrator, Kevin, working with an engineering and design firm. So while solar lights usually have the standard square solar panel, this light has the solar panels embedded in the pole, so it looks like an old-fashioned village light. The prototype went up beside T-Hop about 6 months ago, and after getting feedback from residents, we did make a change to the flower basket and then ordered and received the 19 additional lights. They are actually being stored in the old highway garage until the snow melts, and then our highway superintendent, Gary Wilds, will oversee their installation. The holes for the lights have been dug. You might have seen the red cones along Main Street. That's where the holes are, so steer clear. So Gary and his team just need to slide the poles into the holes once the snow melts. So Gary, I apologize. I may be oversimplifying that a little bit, but in my layman's terms, that's basically what remains to be done. And then in the spring, courtesy of the TCP, we will have gorgeous flowers hanging from each of the light posts. You've probably seen the sidewalk repairs and extensions on Grove Street and Washington Street. Those were made to improve the safety and walking access to the downtown from those streets and the rail trail. We also had gorgeous fall and winter decorations on Main Street, with enormous support from the Topsfield Garden Club and others, along with V-Bale bump outs to slow the traffic to make it safer for people to cross Main Street. You probably saw the parklet that Gary Wilds' team constructed and installed outside of Alex's Roast Beef to provide residents with more outdoor seating and gathering space since COVID had restricted indoor eating. One of the revitalization goals the town had asked for was more community events. And again, since COVID had made an outdoor holiday on the green impossible, we created a virtual event that was broadcast on local cable with singers and dances, and Santa and our fire chief, Jen Collins Brown, arriving in a fire truck to light the lights. We had raffles at our local businesses to encourage people to do their holiday shopping locally. And lastly, we had an amazing film student, Zoe Metzner, who put together 2 videos, one to highlight our local business, again, to increase traffic to their stores. And then the second was just a fun dance montage. That dance video is still up on YouTube. If you haven't had a chance to see it yet, just look for a Topsfield holiday dance video. So this slide shows you the solar light as it was being put up and what it looks like at night, along with the parklet that was outside Alex's. And this slide shows you some snapshots from the Holiday in the Green with adorable Griffin, who won the raffle to ride with Santa and the fire chief, and our police participating in the dance video, dancing with someone who was in the jail. And one of the new EV charges at the town hall, I don't know if you need to move your actual photo squares on the side to be able to see what that EV charger looks like, but it's off to the right-hand side. We have 4 chargers, and they will actually go live in March. So that was what has been done. What we're working on right now is 3 different activities. One of them is a streetscape design for 3 areas of our downtown. These are renditions of what could be done to these areas to improve awareness of the downtown, to create more green and gathering space, and possibilities for the area up at the old highway garage. And again, this is at no cost to the taxpayer. This is being done through a private donation. We're also working, will be shortly, with a firm to identify how to improve our signage, again, funded by a state grant. One of the things that jumped out to us as we began to look at the signage, and you might notice it here, if you look at these 2 pictures, you can see that we have several signs telling people how to get out of town and go to other towns. But we don't have any signs telling them how to get down to our downtown. So we want to fix that. And of course, we're working on creating opportunities for the old highway garage, which Kevin will talk about in a minute. And the last slide I have to show you is what's on deck for us. So the first is a master plan for the town, which will build upon a good deal of work that was done in 2004. We applied for a $100,000 grant to develop the plan, but we didn't get it. So we will be looking into other funding possibilities. We also will be working on how best to recruit new businesses to the downtown and to define Topsfield's brand. Who are we? Why would visitors and businesses want to come to Topsfield? We have so much to offer in the way of activities and businesses and beautiful landscapes, the Topsfield Fair and the fairgrounds, working farms, Ipswich River, Hood Pond, Rail Trail. So we have to define and then market ourselves. One of the best kept secrets about Topsfield actually is that we have liquor licenses available for new restaurants and pubs. Many people actually think we're a dry town, so we have to get the word out. So with that, I will turn it over to Kevin, who's going to talk about one of the town's revitalization opportunities, and that is the old highway garage.
Thanks, Lynn. So there's been a lot of work that's been gone into it and a lot of partnerships, and it's been a real team effort. All the things that were explained, it's really been an exciting time, exciting projects, and a group effort to get there, and it's all heading in the right direction. But as we talk about downtown revitalization, there's certain things that we can control, certain things that we might not have control over. And there's things that are small incremental improvements and things that can be much bigger splashes, can be transformative for our downtown. And so as I started about 14 months ago in this role, looking at the downtown, talking with the downtown businesses, talking with the community's leadership and community in general, there's a number of things that people have talked about. But one thing that I personally felt is important, and I know a lot of other people as well, is, if we're going to do this and do it right, we need to make sure our own house is in order too. And so if there's opportunities in the downtown that we can want to pursue it, explore it, and see how far we can take it and hopefully find some really positive results. And so with that, we have a really unique opportunity in Topsfield with the former highway garage and fire station. And it's centrally located in the downtown. It is under town control. Like I said, that building really has been, to a certain extent, really just for the town. If somebody were to get hurt, we've got kids climbing on the roofs. And so it's not really serving a productive purpose. And then obviously, if we were to do something with that property, it has the opportunity to not only be an asset, an amenity, a destination for the downtown, but also could produce some revenue, hopefully, off of it through purchase and ongoing real estate taxes, meal taxes, potentially, if that's the direction we go in, et cetera. So there's a lot of opportunity with it. But just diving a little bit back up to the history of the building. Building was built in 1941. Well, I should start by saying a big thank you to Norm Eisler and Chief Collins Brown for their research into the history of the building. I wasn't around when this all took place back in 1941, but there was some really great research done to help understand where we were with it. Building was originally voted on for a purpose of both fire and highway, I believe a shared space. And in 1941, in March, they voted to 66 yeses to 16 noes to build the building. And so with that, they pursued and raised $18,000 for the purposes of constructing the building. I don't think 18,000 today would get us this far, but back then it was, they were able to construct it, committee expenses, professional services, engineering fees, architect fees, et cetera. It came to about $17,945 was the total price for that building. And historically, that property was used as the fire station. And then a couple decades later, the fire station on High Street was constructed and became available to the fire department for their use there as they grew as an organization, and that became their new home. And that the building we're talking about, the old highway garage, was then used primarily for the highway purposes. And then about 20 years ago, when the new highway garage was constructed, the DPW building off of Route 1, the building then its uses as its primary use, I should say, as a highway garage was then was moved. And when they did that, the building currently transitioned to what it is currently, which is a space of storage. Right now we have a boat in there. We have environmental police equipment being stored there. We also have rail trail committee tractor in there, and some other additional storage of material that have been there on short-term basis, like the solar lights that we talked about earlier, but also material that's been stored there for probably quite longer than that. And so we look at that in those storage uses. We know we can replicate that. We have some capacity at the cemetery, and talking with the relevant department heads through this process of understanding what's possible at the building. We do have a plan for addressing that need for storage purposes. But obviously, a building in our downtown that it's being used for storage of that kind in such an important location, coupled with the fact that we have an opportunity to maybe do something better with it, really is a driving force behind the conversation at this point. So I'll point at the map. If you've probably been looking at the slide, as you can see, it's just behind a number of the commercial buildings, Alex's Roast Beef and Seafood, and a couple Keller Williams. It's located right behind there. Next slide. Credit goes to Chief Collins Brown, who I know didn't take this photo, but provided me with it. This is a picture when it was used as the Topsfield Fire Department. And you can see there underneath the windows of the mezzanine saying such, obviously the fire engine there, a couple of Topsfield's fire, as well as a very dated vehicle that proves that it does have some years behind it. But I thought it was a fun photo to show. It is color, and it does show the building in what it looked like I believe this is the early 60s. So just to capture sort of what it once looked like. Now, if you look at the next slide, you'll see the image of the building today. And picture maybe does it a little credit than it's due. But the building hasn't been upkept the way our other assets here in town have been. But it's a sturdy building. It's served a purpose over the years for multiple purposes, and now it's serving a purpose for storage. Each of those bays, there are either equipment or vehicles being stored there. But just from generally speaking, the building acreage is 2.27 acres, and that includes the fire station, which is part of this parcel. It's one lot. In addition to that, the building itself, less the mezzanine, is just over 3,600 square feet. With the mezzanine, we're closing in on 4,000 square feet. The mezzanine is located in that section on the right with the boarded up window. And so a couple other just features of the building: high bays, obviously for what its use was historically, and its brick facade is a great material because it gives sort of that, it allows for sort of, I think personally, a historical feel, historical look. And from a renovation standpoint, I think if that building were to be renovated, it's a good place to start from if it's salvageable and can be maintained. It's currently zoned in the residential district, but abuts the downtown village district. And so as we have conversations about this property and next steps, those are some of the things we need to consider, and we are considering relative to trying to opening up opportunities there. From a conservation standpoint, our project review team, which is all the different department heads and disciplines here at town, have looked at this a number of months ago. And Heidi and I have had a number of conversations about the stream that's located in front of the building and what those impacts to that might look like. But we were able to take it to this point, bring it to you folks, because we do believe that from a conservation standpoint, the building was built before certain regulations were in place, but there's certain levels of grandfathering, and there's also some existing conditions that we believe would allow it to go through a conservation commission process, hopefully successfully, but always dependent on any type of application that comes in. Very dependent on what someone would look to do there, what they would is always going to be unique, and that would have to be looked at from an individual basis. And then general environmental, the town did do an environmental test about 17 years ago, before it was vacated by the highway department. And the report does show initially from where the test took place that there's nothing that is concerning right now that were identified at that time. Also from septic, that's obviously a consideration with doing anything at this property. 1,400 gallons is what it's perking at. We have some tests that have been performed, and that gives us a sense for a number of potential seats at a restaurant, residential, what type of use that might have as well. So a number of the things from a development standpoint, the team's looked at, and like I said, we feel good at this point that there's enough there that we can move this forward to have this public conversation about what's possible there. So next slide.
Let me see. There we go.
All right. So unlocking future possibilities. So just from a schedule, what would have to happen to be able to take a look at this and see if there is something possible. Most important at the top of the list is community input. I said it at the top. This is a town-owned property. It's been a building on that lot since 1941. A number of generations have seen this property. They know the property, and the property is worn. We want to see something better happen at that location. And so, but at the same time, we want to make sure there's input from the community for those who care, those people who want to see something hopefully interesting there that can benefit the community. And so tonight's the first step in heading in that direction of gathering that information from you and allowing for there to be a dialogue on that. The other thing that we're working towards right now as well is a subdivision approval. So I mentioned a minute ago that the parcel is attached to the fire station. And so right now we're looking to subdivide the lot. We have an engineering firm working very diligently through that process as we speak, to provide a subdivision plan that can then go hopefully next month to the planning board for their review. This is a step that we need to take regardless or to unlock future possibilities. It doesn't guarantee type of use, anything that's coming in. It's just to allow for that parcel to be subdivided from the fire station. But what is needed after the subdivision approval, if it is granted, is then a town meeting. And at the town meeting this year, we're going to be looking for a zoning change and then an approval for disposition of the property. Again, that will give us the opportunity to continue to move down this process. Again, doesn't guarantee what's going to go in there, when something might go in there, but it allows for more opportunities for the town to look at to do something interesting there in that location. So we're looking to zone it into the downtown business district as part of that process as well. And then if we're successful at town meeting, which which we hope we are. Next up will be the marketing of the property. And we know about it. We've got over 80 some people, I think was said earlier. It's probably grown since then on this call alone. But we want to make sure we're shouting from the rooftops that there's this interesting opportunity in Topsfield, and see what the market thinks of it. See what people could possibly do for ideas in that space. Some of the things to consider: restaurants, tap room, different opportunities that could go in there as well. There's a number of things that could happen, but really, it's when the zoning is changed, when and if it's going to be those entrepreneurs, those investors, those people that likely have done these types of projects before, where they've restored a building or done something similar, that come up with those really creative ideas. But that said, hopefully we can guide those ideas through a request for proposal. So after we do some marketing of the property, letting people know it's out there, we'll do what's known as an RFP, where we'll put it on the street, as they say, which means we write an RFP with a number of things that we're looking for as a community related to a disposition, a purchase of the property from somebody. And we'll ask for people to respond to that RFP by a certain date with their proposals, with a very comprehensive list of pro forma of what they're looking to do there, the benefits to the town from a revenue standpoint, benefits just as an amenity or a resource or an asset to the town. And we can craft that RFP some ways, not entirely, but in some ways based on the community feel and what the community would like to see there. So we don't want to be too restrictive, but we also want to make sure that things that are most important to us, that we try to encourage that in the RFP for people to respond to. And I'll also point out, again, this allows us to move through this process. It doesn't guarantee we're going to have a proposal at the end of the day. We hope there will be multiple of interesting ideas that can really help bring up our downtown and the community as a whole, and done right sized, right type of approach. But it's not a guarantee. So we're excited to be able to unlock the possibilities. But all of these steps laid out in this process are just that step path to get us there. They all have to happen. But until we get to the final stage where we receive requests, at that point, we can accept them, or we can accept one of them, or we can deny them all if we don't feel it's the right fit, and go out to the marketplace if that's what the community and the team think is most appropriate. So there's a lot of opportunity for input from you folks. We value it tremendously, and it's really important. And so I'll just mention too that the image you see there, VHP, who's an engineering design firm, which Lynn mentioned at the top of the meeting, is a firm we're working with right now through a contribution that we received to help with some renditions and design of three different locations in the downtown. This is one of them. We've asked them to look at the building just because, based on the existing conditions, we want to kind of trigger some ideas, some thoughts for people to start thinking of what's possible there. It's very basic, but you can see some picnic tables out there. You can see improvements to the building. And you also see a little bit of green space there. There's a real possibility that the way the lot is, it just back in the day, they poured asphalt over basically everything. Feel strongly that we can do something here where that can probably likely need to be pulled back at some level from the stream from a conservation standpoint, and create hopefully even a little bit of green space in there. Again, we all depend on what the applicant provides us with, but that's something that I think, if it's something the town desires, it's something we could probably work into the RP itself. And then I think also access in and out of this property from a pedestrian standpoint, whatever the use is important. Right now, there's no sidewalks. There's no curbing. I think that there's if this becomes an activated space, then we would have to consider, the applicant would have to consider making some improvements on the sidewalk as well, potentially, to help people kind of bring people down to the space. And so that would certainly be an interesting an improvement that could come along with this process as well. Next slide. So we want to hear from you folks. So like I said earlier, this is really the first opportunity that we have to hear what you folks are thinking, questions you might have, thoughts, whatever it might be. So, yeah, what I'll do right now is I'm going to switch over and take a look at some of the questions that have come in. If you just give me 1 second. So first question I had was from Raphael McDonald. Raphael, do you want to pose the question? You did provide it. I can read it. Debbie can unmute you if you'd like. There we go.
Sure, Kevin. Yeah. Just a clarification. Maybe I missed it, but is the town looking to develop it and then lease it out, or develop it and then sell it? Will we retain ownership, or will the town retain ownership?
So right now, the conversations we've had is to sell the property as is, or put it out, I should say, it's the marketplace as is, for a sale. It gives the most flexibility for somebody who's looking to invest in the property, and it limits the town's needed contribution to any type of improvements that might be necessary. Although, as we go down the path, there could be certain things that the town, through a negotiation with an applicant, there might be things that the town might look to help in contributions in like kind contributions or other as well. So then I have Ted Chapman. I'll read the questions. If Debbie unmutes you, Ted, you feel free to just jump right in. First question was on the septic gallons that I mentioned earlier, capacity. The question was, would that support a restaurant, and of what capacity? Working with our Board of Health director, the tests that have been done on it shows that it would be around 40 seats in a restaurant if it were to be one. So from a scale standpoint, we're not looking at a massive multi-hundred seat restaurant. We couldn't do it based on how the septic is today. But there's enough, hopefully, there for someone to make a business case that it certainly can be used as such. That's the hope, but there's no guarantee. I think as we go through the process and talking with people, we'll get a better handle on exactly what they're looking for and their needs are to make a business case for it. Second, if a restaurant were to be planned there, would there be a guaranteed liquor license? We have liquor licenses available, unspoken for. So I think it would be very likely that there wouldn't be an issue with ensuring that if a proposal came in, a liquor license would be associated with it. It would still have to go through the approval process locally, but we can put into there, working with the select board, certain types of don't want to call it guarantees, but certain types of scenarios that are possible when it comes to that. It's a very likely situation that the liquor license could even be attached to the property if deemed so by the select board. We aren't there yet, so I don't want to speak for them, but there's ways that we can build that in. So there is a high confidence, or maybe I should say guarantee, if it's built into the contract or the RFP, that a liquor license would come along with it. And the last question I had from Ted was, restaurants typically stay open later. What kind of ordinances would need to be changed to attract a successful restaurant? So I actually, I'll turn this one over to Martha Morrison. Debbie, if you want to unmute Martha, I don't know. All right.
Would you repeat the question?
Certainly. So restaurants typically stay open later. what kind of ordinances would you need to change to attract a successful restaurant?
We already permit restaurants in the business village. So should this be joined to the business village, they would just simply need to go to the zoning board for a special permit and site plan review. We're already set up in all 4 business districts that restaurants are allowed. So this would not be an unusual thing, for a restaurateur to go through the process.
Martha, can I ask how late can a restaurant stay open right now in the business village?
That would depend on whatever permit they have. No, I think, I'm not going to speak for the zoning board. Typically, they do establish hours of operation based on the neighbors and based on the district and so on. Typically, as we know, most of our downtown restaurants close fairly early, as it is right now. But typically, I think they usually say 10:30 or 11 or something for, say, conference and event facilities that do have food and activities and events. So I would imagine it would be something like that. But it would be totally determined by the input that the board received from the neighbors as to their concerns and what they would think would be reasonable. Does that answer the question, Kevin?
I think so. While we have you unmuted, Martha, you want to just maybe talk a little bit about the efforts right now? Well, I mentioned earlier that we're working on the subdivision plot to submit to the planning board. And we're looking at later next month right now to do a formal submission to you.
Right.
Process-wise, do you want to maybe just touch on that briefly?
Sure. Well, the town has hired an engineering firm to produce a subdivision plan. And that subdivision plan will show the division of the fire station portion of the property from the highway garage portion of the property. And that plan will also include an extension of School Avenue to provide frontage for the highway garage property. So we will be receiving that plan. The planning board will receive that plan as soon as possible, everyone, as soon as possible. And we are required and are very happy to hold a public hearing on the plan. That I think is now scheduled, and I know Donna Rich is here, for March 30th. I think that's when the formal public hearing would take place. Abutters will be notified of the hearing and the date and the time and so on. And then, of course, the public is very welcome to attend. This will be a Zoom meeting, but welcome to attend. And we simply review the plan to be sure that it meets zoning standards and road construction standards and the like, just as any developer would bring to us. If approved, then there will be a plan, a lot with frontage and something that can go into the RFP.
That's great. Thank you, Mark.
Anything further on this?
I think that's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I do see we have a Mr. Bill Quinn whose hands raised on my screen. Debbie, if you want to mute Mr. Quinn, you can take his comment or question.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Nope, he just went mute again.
Is that good?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
The Council of Aging, before we built the new town hall addition, had looked at that property also, and we had, of course, come to similar conclusions that you have regarding there was a percolation problem. And I also understand that the building had no foundation to it, and it had some structural damage. In fact, the building was indeed condemned. I know that the veterans still were using the loft that you referred to for some storage, but we eventually vacated that area. But in investigating all this, it's really more of a question I'm throwing out there. I was told that to the right of School Avenue or School Street, just continuing that building across the street, that there's some vacant land in that area up on the hill, and that area was not of a size that was able to be developed for any purpose. And that, if this is true, that land may be available for sale. And that could be a tremendous enhancement to this project if that's true, that you could purchase that piece of land that's unbuildable from the current owner. And I just wanted to throw that out there and wondered if you had investigated any of that adjacent land to the right of the building when you're looking up School Street.
So that's great questions and comments. Thank you, Mr. Quinn. Debbie, if you want to unmute Martha again, I know she has a little more history on the property than I do. But I know we've looked comprehensively at the box top lot as well as the lot you referenced behind that. And so there is conversation and some movement happening on that front. Martha, did you want to speak to it a little bit?
I'll just mention that the warrant article going to town meeting asks for 3 lots to be included in the business village. One is the box top that's already a non-conforming operation there, but we bring it into conformity, the highway garage, and then the lot that is currently landlocked. And it would be then up to the property owner to work with the town as to whether or not it can be unlandlocked, or what he might want to do with it. But Bill, it's a great question and observation that there is yet another parcel there that could provide further opportunity. And so again, I won't speak for the property owner, I can't, but I'm sure the town will be speaking with him as time proceeds. Right, Kevin?
Absolutely. No, exactly right.
Martha, could I just ask, the fact that it couldn't be built upon in the past, my understanding was not that the lot was too small, but that it didn't have the frontage.
Right. It doesn't have frontage. And we went through quite a bit of discussion about that some years ago. But as I say, this is going to require discussion with the property owner, see what the property owner would like to do going forward. But it just makes sense to include that lot as well in the expansion of the business village. Something that is really very needed. I'm sorry, I have a beagle climbing into my lap here. Impacted.
That's great. Wendy, before the last questions, the question was asked about the perk tests that were performed, and it was just referenced again by Mr. Quinn. Did you have anything you wanted to add? I mentioned 40 seats from a restaurant standpoint. I believe roughly the number based on the 1,400 gallons. Is that accurate?
Yes. So back in, I believe it was 2001, the previous, the town engineer did the work. Those are still valid perk tests. And they did come out with an area about 50 by 50 that they can use. It's about 1,400 gallons. And Title V allows for a lot of different flows. So whoever was interested can certainly just go through, whether it was restaurant space or retail space or, whatever it is, happy to just talk through those. But in general, you have 1,400 gallons to work with.
Perfect. Thank you, Wendy. And I know Heidi was on. I don't know if she still is or not. But I don't know, Heidi, from the conservation standpoint, is there anything else you wanted to mention from your insight or expertise on that?
Sorry, getting to unmute. As we've talked, there's a lot of overlapping regulations. We're talking only about the old DPW lot and not the other lot at all. The vacant lot. I'm not going to talk about that one. With all of the impervious area out there, riverfront area is the biggest regulation hurdle with stormwater requirements. But that lot is highly impervious with all of the pavements. So, I would anticipate things can be done out there under the redevelopment clause under riverfront. It's going to require a lot of stormwater work is what I would anticipate. So.
Thanks, Heidi. So I think I said earlier, I think there's a lot of just unknowns without a project basically to be looked at, but there's nothing that creates, Heidi, I said, is there anything that's a non-starter, that we're, happening here, and just, we have to see an application, but, there is certainly ways to do something. Not to put words in your mouth, but I just did. I'm sorry, Heidi.
No, that's, exactly. Without full plans and an application, it's difficult to say. There's some factors, but being previously developed, I would anticipate something can be done.
And this is certainly not there's certainly steps in the process that'll have to happen, whether it's from a perk test in understanding the septic and what that would look like to the Concom, assessments of the building. But we absolutely have to try, right? I mean, this is a great location. I feel like the community, just on some of the feedback I've heard outside of this meeting as well on this, sees this as a really great opportunity from the people I've spoken with. And so we'll take this down the path as far as we can go with it. And hopefully we can find some really great success, because, you can tell from Chair Remunis's comments and others, there's a lot of passion in Topsfield for revitalizing the downtown. And I think my hope is that somebody who's creative enough and looking to be a first mover in the space can really create something special there that can be that destination. I do see another hand being raised on my screen. The last name's cut off, so I'm going to say Frank Cap. Like he has a question or comment.
Yeah, hi, thanks, Kevin. It's Kappa Bianca. Thanks for hosting this. And really, my question is just about the RFP. You mentioned that you were going to be looking to, the town to get, input on drafting, I guess, the guidelines around that before sending it out. How do you plan on going about getting feedback from the town?
So this is the first step. It's listening, it's getting comments, feedback. We don't want to be just sitting back and waiting necessarily. We'll have these opportunities again where people can, as we move through the process and we start checking the boxes and getting to a place of understanding of that we can move something forward, before we put this out, an RFP, and draft the RFP, I should say, or at least get the draft and maybe then get some input along the way. We'll have more conversations, hopefully in person if things get better with COVID. But if not, we'll do something similar like this again, and I am fully committed. If anyone has any thoughts, questions, ideas, and they don't feel comfortable maybe sharing them in a big audience, we're not as accessible as we would under circumstances with COVID, where I'd invite you to walk right through that door and come into the office. We'll sit down and we'll talk about it. But if you have a thought, a question, you can email me anytime. You can call the office, or we'll find a time to meet socially distancing somewhere, and we'll talk through some of your thoughts. There's some really amazing people in this community that have some really interesting ideas, and if there's a passion there and they want to share it and it makes sense, we'll certainly look to incorporate that into the process. So Frank, if you had something you wanted to share specifically, like Kev, I think a brewery would be great there, or a tap room, or a restaurant,
that was exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah,
I was going to say it's like, to me, it seems like a perfect location, and even building for a brewery. I think maybe just hearing about the the septic limitations, that might be one of the only, I guess, roadblocks. But yeah, so that would have been my suggestion, a brewery, and that's it. There you go.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. I'll be honest with you. When I first saw that building, I'm not a brewer by any means, but when I've gone to them, and it just kind of screamed to me, big high bays, large doors,
Yep.
Not right on Main Street, set back just a little bit so you can have a little space and a little bit of opportunity to do some activities there. That was my first gut instinct as well. And I think just from, again, I've heard a lot of other people sort of express a similar type of use, place to get, whether it's a brewery or if it's like a tap room or if it's, even a restaurant or something, where people can hopefully gather, in the evenings, because we really don't have those options locally, but we have a fantastic downtown. I think that's sort of the next piece that we could really, if we can get out there and get somebody who's interested in this parcel to activate it in that way, I think that'd be great. But at the same time, if there's things that limit that opportunity, we'll look at other things as well. Obviously, we're not sold on it. Certainly, we're early in the process. So, your feedback's helpful. That's great confirmation, and welcome other people's ideas on the space. So yeah, no, it's interesting. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments? Chair Bermudez, I don't know if you have any last thoughts before we wrap up tonight. We're right at 7:30, so we're on time tonight.
Yeah, no, I just want to thank everybody again for coming out to listen. And, there's a lot of information here that you might have been, not as familiar with before. So if you have any thoughts after this, as Kevin said, please reach out, and either with questions or input, and there'll be other opportunities for you to share. There are more planning board meetings. As Martha said, there's the public hearing. We want everybody to be as comfortable as possible before town meeting so that there are no surprises.
Yeah, thank you. And I just echo all that. Just thank everybody for making the time. We had such a great turnout tonight. This is a real amazing opportunity. And it's one of those transformative moments that we have as a community to do something really special there. So I'm just excited to be a part of the team on trying to move this forward, and we really appreciate everybody's input. And please keep us posted as things move forward.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Have a great night.